I'd just like to start this podcast off by saying, happy birthday, James. Blimey, you're 15 now. At least you are at the time of recording this. And probably by the time you hear this, it will no longer be your birthday. And because of everything here having to remain secret, I can't contact you on it. But I did leave you a recording that you've probably watched. And I've left you your presents. And you wondered why I needed so many suitcases. To be fair, I did have a lot of stuff. It was lucky that our luggage did manage to completely survive that fire on the train. Otherwise, well, you wouldn't have had any presents for your birthday. But, missing you, I'll admit, I did have a bit of a cry earlier on. Not a big, massive, relentless one or anything like that, but tears were shed nonetheless. I hope that we'll be able to get back, soon. And, you know what, you can meet Robert. If you didn't listen to my last one, it was, well, Rob's a werewolf, but he's a really lovely person. To us, he's actually pretty shy, pretty enclosed. A lot of the time I just see him staring out the window, out at the stars, as if he's wondering where he belongs now. But anyway, he wishes you happy birthday as well, and so does Tom. I believe that he also left you a few gifts. Anyway, hope Teg's looking after you well, but I hope you and him are looking after Sarah. There will be an inspection when I get back. Make sure everything's up to check. I know that circumstances at the minute aren't exactly the best, but I do hope that you do have a wonderful birthday. Heck, maybe even when I get back, we'll celebrate it all over again, eh? Yeah, why not? We'll do that. Just make sure there's no alcohol. You're not old enough to drink yet. And I don't care if other parents let their kids drink when they're 15. You're not touching a drop. I'm not having you become an alcoholic while you're under my care. When you're 18, sure, do whatever the fuck you like. You'll be an adult, it'll be your problem then. But until then, sorry, but I still make the rules for now. Anyway, enough of that. Should probably tell you about what happened the other day when I met Dr. Vello. It had been just a couple of hours since Robert had joined us, and those 2 hours were basically spent explaining, well, everything to him. Everything was new to him, but not in a amazing, wonderful way, in just a confused and sort of isolated feeling way to him. You could tell that he'd been a recluse his whole life, even though he never said it himself. All the signs there were obvious. Keeping his distance away from us, not really being able to fully engage with conversation. And I'll admit, normally, those are the type of people I tend to avoid. I'll admit it, I like to have a good conversation with people. It's just something I require, but, well, I kind of, well, obviously I felt sorry for him, but after that brief experience I had when people thought that I was him, and I was nearly killed because of it, I guess you could say I'd walked a mile in his shoes. But anyway, after we explained literally everything to him, I showed him my cabin, which is where he would be skiing. I had one of the emergency self-inflating pegs made up into the corner, Work Robert did seem to like. It gave him his sort of own little space. He immediately went and sat on the mattress, making himself comfortable, though being careful not to pop it as he was still in his werewolf form. I then closed the door for a bit of privacy and sat on my bed. I then took my phone out and started looking at some pictures of, well, you, James, if you're listening to this, and Sarah, and even the few that I managed to get of Ted. While I was doing this, Robert, for the first time ever that I'd noted, actually began a conversation himself. He asked me, how was this all normal to me? I asked him exactly what he was talking about. How he was a werewolf, I was half Scarverer. My friend was now a cyborg, another one was dead. My firstborn's mother died and the second one ran away. I had a virus that was slowly killing me and I was searching for a cure in a rocket. He asked me, how would that ever seem normal to anyone? I guess I would have always said about things that are normal. Normality is just what one perceives it to be. And anything that exceeds your perception of your own normality seems abnormal to you. In which there you've got a choice. You can either accept it and then it could also possibly even be added to your own sense of normality, or you could reject it and fight to wipe it out. I'm not saying either one is the right answer or one is better than the other. After all, you won't accept a mass murderer or serial killer as an accepted normality. But equally, if someone just happens to be a werewolf, but they're perfectly nice and decent person, then fine, so be it. It's not affecting me in any way. Besides, how can I talk? Look at me. At least with you, I think it might be natural, possibly. And maybe you didn't do it to yourself like I certainly did. Unfortunately, despite this, I could tell that Robert wasn't really feeling the reassurance I was trying to give him. So then I decided that I should open up a bit more. I decided to walk over to him and gestured to see if I could sit down on the end of his bed. It took him a moment, but he reluctantly accepted. I sat cautiously, keeping my space between me and him. I could tell, at least for now, that he wanted to keep his distance. And this was clearly more than he was normally prepared to allow. I said to him, "Alright, Rob, I'll admit I tend to put a happier, luckier look on life on things. Because that's just how I prefer to live. Life is depressing enough as it is. Maybe if I pretend that bad things about me or bad things about life in general just aren't there, then, well, maybe it just helps me get on with it. The real reason I stay away from alcohol now isn't to do with becoming a father or anything like that. I am an alcoholic. I just am. And going cold turkey is the only way I can continue. And by doing that, it's caused more stress, more anger, and I feel more jittery because of it. But maybe I was able to give it up because I found something that replaced it. One addiction to another. Rob finally turned to look at me, though now I had stopped looking at him and started looking at the floor as I continued. It's The blood, just the taste of it, sweet, fruity texture. Everything about it just screams wrong to me, like this isn't right, this isn't normal. And yet at the same time, I can't deny what my taste buds are enjoying it. And unfortunately, there's no easy way out. So, you can accept it all you like, but you've got to just get on with it. So, there. It's not easy. But I pretend and try to forget about that. Because at least then, it does make it easier. I couldn't tell whether Robert was being sincere about this or he was just trying to break the obvious tension. But he then said to me he only understood about half of what I was talking about. Which made me chuckle at least. My body then began to feel very weak, but my head began to feel very heavy. The pills for the virus hadn't fully kicked in yet, and I had been without them for quite a long time. I began to feel a bit dizzy, and I began leaning forward. I was about to hit the floor when Robert caught me. In his wolf form, his strength was enhanced. Though still not as strong as Tom, he was able to pick me up and carry me to my bed across the room. He placed me on there with my eyes just barely open. He then awkwardly paused and said, "Thank you for trying." He then went back over to his bed and sat on it, staring at the floor again. I wondered, had I actually made a breakthrough? Or was it all just pointless? Nah, I thought. Although not perfect, maybe I'd gotten somewhere with it. Maybe not fully reached him, but I was on my way there at least. However, I didn't have time to think about that now. The rocket suddenly came under attack as two large metal clamps grabbed onto each side of the rocket mid-flight. I injured my shoulder as I fell to the floor. I then immediately got back up and went to Tom's quarters to make sure that he was okay. I found Tom also on the floor. However, unlike myself, he was unable to get up. There was some sort of malfunction in the robotic parts of himself, due to it coming in such a hard impact with the floor. I had to get Robert to help me to pick him up off the floor. I asked him if he'd be able to repair himself. He told me he would, as he'd brought spare parts just in case. However, that would take at least 10 or 15 minutes. I told him that was simply time we didn't have. Neither of us knew exactly what was happening at that point. But it doesn't take a genius to know that it wasn't good. Robert then put his werewolf ears down to the floor. I asked him what was up. He said that we'd stopped. I decided to put my own ear to the floor. Although mine were probably not as good as his werewolf ones, they'd still be better than any humans. I then realised what he meant. The engines had stopped. We had now officially stopped moving. We then heard screams coming out from the corridor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 screams we heard. They were the screams of our crew members dying. We were now on our own. I grabbed my gun from my ankle immediately and set it to kill. I was hardly going to be taking any chances. 8 black hooded figures emerged from the corridor, with their only distinction being the silver goggles mounted round their eye section. All of them armed, yet they did not fire at us. They just stood there, holding their guns up at us. I wondered why they were waiting. I was wondering to myself, why didn't I just fire? Then another part of me realised, well, what would be the point? There was 8 of them, and 1 of me with a gun. Perhaps Robert might be able to take one out as well. But they would eventually kill us all. So why wouldn't they? We would soon find out our answer as their leader emerged. A man with a large blue skull-like head. So skull-like that his eyes were particularly recessed into his head. He introduced himself. "Apologies for the interruption, but I am Dr. Vello, and I believe that you have something, well, various somethings now of mine. Donfrey Doncaster, is it? What do you want?" "I simply want my creations back." "Your creations?" "The werewolf here, Robert, I believe this one is called. And this creature downstairs, the one that, unfortunately, may have taken bits of your sheep. A pat, ringing any bells? And let me guess, you're also behind the vampire. So you're running to that one as well, no?" "That one was a mere mistake, whereas others were just in natural habitat that I gave them." "I don't think you understand the word natural." I never mind it, sorry, but you created these. It's just the movie business. It's how things work. You want something realistic, then you make the real thing. Movie business? Aye, do I have to repeat myself? Yes, that is cheaper and more realistic." Rob then dropped to the floor in tears, realising that his whole existence was just to be a monster in some Hollywood-like movie. To him now his whole existence felt pointless. And how could you blame him after finding that out? But even then I was still thinking my options through my head, as I knew I couldn't fight them off. "Okay then, Dr. Vello. Let's have a little deal, eh? A compromise for both of us." "I do not compromise." No, I think you should at least listen to it. It's a very fair one, considering. You can have that gremlin creature. Take it away. Do whatever you like while I care. But Robert is a living, thinking person. He's not just a meat. I even surprise myself of how successful I am. But I tell you what, you come with me, as I think you will be useful to me." "What is your replacement werewolf?" No. Creating these creatures was just to fund my real passion." "What is that?" To find that out, you will have to come with me." "And if I don't?" If you do not come willingly, I will take you by force. Your friend back there will be killed. And as for Robert, well, I could either send him off as a loss, or just put him down right now." "You leave them alone?" "For your cooperation? Yes. But just to make sure you do not double-cross me, an explosive device has been left here. If you should betray me, it get detonated remotely. And your friends will be blown into a million little pieces. I was not finished. And we will not make things so comfortable for your son, is it? And daughter? No, yes? You leave them alone. Weapon or no weapon, I will fucking rip your throat with my bare teeth. That is the rage, the passion, I'll show you. Enough listening him. Oh, girl. Excellent. We leave immediately. I was then dragged off my rocket and onto Dr. Vello's huge mothership. We then fully detached from my rocket and left. I wondered if I should have fought harder, or if fighting against them was the wrong decision in the first place. All I knew is I had a million things on my plate to worry about. Never mind Dr. Vello killing me, or even the Omicron virus. At this rate, I was going to die from a stress overdose, with seemingly no cure in sight. And I hadn't even thought about yet what all of this was actually about. Why was he so interested in me anyway? Why is everybody so interested in me? Well, then again, when you think about it, I'm pretty unique. A human Scarver. A Scarver on its own is incredibly rare, but a mix between that and a human? Very unique. At least it was until James and Sarah came about. But still incredibly rare. And one would presume valuable in the right place and right market. However, it turned out that Dr. Vello wanted none of that, at least didn't want me for those reasons. Almost immediately upon entering on board his ship, he explained the reason why I, out of everyone, was required. It was nothing to do with me being a half human, half Scarver. It was to do with me blowing up the Earth. But not for the reasons that you think. He explained that what he'd always wanted to do was dimension travel. It's something apparently he'd been mocked upon all his life about. And apparently he gathered experimentation and research on the subject, but was never able to properly, fully establish a link with another dimension, a parallel universe. However, now that he had me, he would be able to. I told him that this was madness. All of this, death and that, just so you can hop over to another world and maybe meet yourself while you're doing the same thing to try and get to another. I mean, what was the point? Dr. Vello then nodded at the two men that were guarding me at either side. They clasped their hands round my shoulders and physically forced me onto my knees. Dr. Vello then came up, leaned right up to my face, and slapped me across it. He then proceeded to kick me down to the floor, which I was then picked back up by his two lackeys in order for him to do the exact same thing again. This time Dr. Vello himself picked me up by my lapels and said, "For scientific discovery." He then let me drop back down to the floor. I then spat out some blood. He started explaining why me. Why do you need me? So smart, surely you'd be able to do it yourself. Dr. Val then proceeded to stand on my hand. He told me that the reason was his thinks that I had been the cause of such a huge event, a changing event in history, the destruction of half of the Earth, being such a big and massive changing event that would make me a stronger link with the parallel universes, being able to cross from dimension to dimension to dimension, essentially like using me as a magnet. And this was only strengthened by me travelling back in time and having a child that technically shouldn't even exist. All these things were changing form other worlds parallel to ours. He continued on, now in delight rather than anger. He spoke about how he had considered killing me, not due to any vendetta or anything, but just to see if killing me would strengthen the connection. Though apparently he then later discovered that he would need me alive, as I would have to physically pass through into one of these other parallel worlds or dimensions in order to properly establish a link between the two. After he was eventually done with his lecture, He instructed his lackeys to lock me up, and unfortunately, this is where I am now. They've taken my weapon and any USB equipment. All I have is this phone, which they allowed me to keep. I'm sorry I felt the sparks of this. I made it seem all happy and that. I wanted to try and pretend for a bit that it wasn't happening, but it is. I think I might have overheard that. I think we're on a course back to Earth. Something to do with the link between other worlds and that being stronger there for some reason, because it was the event. Oh no, there's something someone can do to stop this Batman. Or Robert, or Ted, anyone. Thing is though, if he does go to another parallel universal dimension, whatever, then well, technically we'll be rid of him. I think he's deluded though. The thing is, even if he is right and he proves this scientific discovery of his, I honestly don't know what he'll do next. I'm not sure if he even knows what he'll do next. Anyway, that is how I have met Dr. Vello. I think the only reason he's allowing me to record this podcast right now is probably for... Oh, I just realised why. The only reason he's allowed me to do this is so that he can get his name out there. That's probably it. So maybe there was another reason why he wanted me. Or was it just a happy little coincidence bonus? Anyway, James, happy birthday, and to be honest, I'm glad you're not hearing this on your birthday. As I know it will probably ruin it for you. But I hope you had a good day. And I hope I'll be able to see you again soon.